Manon's grandmother is such a witch.
Such a witch.
She's such a witch.
And we don't mean that in a complimentary way. Gosh, these witches and their wyverns made me feel so many things.
I know.
You are being summoned by whatever force you believe in to fly, to stand up, to fight, to speak protection.
Will you go? Will you fly? Will you put yourself out there?
I'm not crying. You're crying, guys.
Oh my gosh, why?
Hi, and welcome to Romantasy Remedy. I'm Whitney.
And I'm Kenzie. We're sisters-in-law and book besties who thrive on daily doses of magic and romance from our favorite fantasy stories.
So, if your emotional support animal is a dragon and your therapist has shadow powers, you're in the right place. Thanks for being here and for liking, rating, and following our show. Before we get started, this is our official content warning. Simply put, Romantasy Remedy is a podcast for grown-ups. The topics and language will reflect that. Please listen at your comfort level. And one more thing before we dive into The 13 from the Throne of Glass series, our spoiler warning. This episode will have spoilers for all books in the Throne of Glass series. All, as in all of the 8 books. From Throne of Glass to Kingdom of Ash. If the words, "Live, Manon, live," do not reduce you to a shell of a human yet because you haven't read them, please press pause. Go read the whole series and come back when you're done. Also, we will briefly talk about some Maasverse theories involving characters from A Court of Thorns and Roses. So if you have not read that series and you don't want any spoilers, you might also want to come back to this at a later time.
Thanks, Whit. One of our goals here at Romantasy Remedy is to highlight how books in this genre inspire readers. When we see characters facing fears, overcoming challenges, and growing into their potential, it helps us do the same. So each episode, we choose a quote for our affirmation. And of course, this is a totally different episode for us because we're just focusing on the 13 and we couldn't pick one affirmation. So we chose several quotes from our readings to use as phrases to empower and motivate us. So I'm just going to list them real quick and then we'll talk about each of them more as we go throughout the episode. There is no such thing as a witch being alone. Proceed with cunning. She was no one's slave. Don't get distracted with minor defeats. We might be so much more. There is a better world out there, and I will fight for it. Will you fly? Exhaustion can be as deadly as any weapon. And then the last one, be the bridge, be the light. So keep listening to hear more about these affirmations during the episode. And now, witchlings, it's time to fly.
Yes, those affirmations are all so good. I can't wait to talk about them even more in the episode.
Each one of them hits for a different reason, and I love it.
Yes. Thank you so much for reading all of those. So I'm going to ask a big question right at the beginning, Kenz.
I'm ready.
What do you love about Manon and the 13? And along with that, why do you think they're so beloved by the book community?
Well, I think it's one simple answer for both of those questions. The sisterhood that the 13 have, we want that community that the 13 has, right? There's such a cool group that we all wish we were part of.
No, I agree. I think the sisterhood element is a big reason why everyone loves them and admires them. One part that stood out to me early on is when Elite is first introduced and Manon and Astrid have kind of just discovered that she has some witch heritage.
Yes.
And Astrid tells her that there is no such thing as a witch being alone. And that seems like such a simple saying, but I think once you've read the whole series and you see how the 13 act and how they are so loyal to each other, that you're like, okay, that actually is a really meaningful statement that Astrid makes.
Yes.
At that point.
No, absolutely.
And that's why I picked it as an affirmation, because I was like, this really, I think, represents their sisterhood and their loyalty to each other.
Through the whole thing, right? And also in Queen of Shadows, Duke Parrington orders Manon to choose a coven to breed with the Valg. And so it goes back to this whole witches won't be alone. But this is when we learn that witches are actually descendants of the Bog and the Fae, right?
Yes, yes. They
They
I guess, a long, long time ago, some Vogue and some Fae got together, and bam, there were witches.
So now we know.
Crazy,
I want to.
crazy.
I
Yeah.
don't want to know more, but I want like a prequel.
Yeah. Like, what
You
was
know
the
what I mean?
story there? Like, what Fae? I don't know.
No.
Maybe we don't want to know.
Right.
Maybe we don't want to know. Because certainly what Duke Parrington is setting up here is not a pleasant consensual
No.
situation.
Right.
So if
Right.
it was anything like that, we probably don't want to know.
We don't want to know. Right. So he's making her pick a coven basically to use as experiments because they're wanting to produce some kind of creature for their army. Astrid has very strong feelings about this, which we'll learn about more later. And she pushes Manon on it. And she, at this point, is her second. And it ends up getting her demoted to third for a while. We'll talk more about that and why she was so passionate about witchlings being sacred and not using a coven or these witches as kind of like breeding experiments when they were younger, because they're witches and they're all old. But when they were younger, they all had to go hunt down Crockrens, right?
Yes.
Crocken witches.
Krakens.
Please excuse us if we, say anything wrong because it's going to happen.
I feel like all of us here in the Romantasy world are doing the best we can with pronunciation. Like,
100%.
we all just have a mutual understanding that if we say a name wrong, it's fine.
Just going to be
it's
what
fine.
it is.
It is what it is.
We all know what we're talking about, and so it's fine.
Exactly.
So they all have to go out on their own, and they're hunting down the Kraken witches. And during this time, Astrid actually fell in love and met a man while she was out. And she ended up staying with him for 5 months in the woods, right? It was like a log cabin in the woods. Sounds very dreamy, actually.
Yes.
So
and
nice.
Speaking of it being dreamy, I didn't remember this until I reread it for our chat today, that I think what happened is there was a storm.
That's right.
She was grounded in this storm. Her broom was broken, so he rescues her. Which is
and like takes care of
romantic.
her, right? Because he like brings her back to his cabin and she wakes up and he has bandaged her or something, right?
Yes. He nurses her back to health.
Right.
Sweet,
and he had to have known what she was if she fell out of the sky with a broom, and he still chose to do that. I would love to know more about them. Novella, please.
Yes. So many potential novellas here. So many.
Right. So she stays with him for 5 months. Then she goes back to the Blackbeak Keep. And that's when she found out she was pregnant, very early pregnant. But because pregnancies are so rare with witches, they're put on bed rest and locked behind a door. Probably more than anything because it's what's her name? Manon's grandmother. Terrible human being.
I don't even know what her name is.
I don't either.
Grandma Blackbeak. I think that makes her sound way too nice. I think she just calls her the matron or the high witch.
Yes.
Like, I don't know that we ever learn her actual name.
No, I think you're right.
I think at one point she says her mother's name, but I don't think we know what her name is.
That's fine. She can stay nameless. We don't like her.
Yeah.
But
we don't. We
no.
don't.
And so she's kind of put on bed rest to protect the witchling. And Astrid's witchling is stillborn. And Manon's grandmother beat Astrid and made her feel shame for this and refused to let her see her witchling and never allowed her to hold it, see it, whatever. And then actually branded Astrid's abdomen with the word unclean and then threw her in the snow to die, right? Kind of like,
right.
Good luck. And that's when we find out that Sorrel and Vesta had actually rescued Astrid and cared for her while she healed. And Astrid never went back to her hunter, which is so sad. But she does say this. He never married. And even when he was an old man, I'd sometimes see him sitting on that front porch as if he were waiting for someone. Big turning point.
My heart. This story just like breaks my heart. I just felt for Astrid. Like,
so
she
sad.
fell in love and had to leave this man that she loved. And then she has this witchling who, first of all, is stillborn, which is heartbreaking enough. Second of all, the matron takes the witchling, won't let Astrid hold this baby. Like, and then she gets abused. Like, it is the worst possible
all the
Heartbreak
way.
ever.
And it breaks my heart for her because she felt unclean because of what the matron did, that she couldn't even go down and see him again. Like, she felt, like,
Yeah.
unworthy or shameful about it, that she couldn't even do that for herself. It's terrible.
Totally. I think up to this point, you're kind of still figuring out the Blackbeak and the Iron Teeth witches, I guess, in
Yeah.
general. And, they're described as being brutal, and you can tell they are like brutal fighters and they kill and whatever.
Yes.
But I think, I didn't totally dislike them until this story came out.
Right.
And then I really, really disliked, obviously Manon's grandmother and
Right.
just the traditions that they
Yes.
had. And just really started to not be a big fan at that point.
Yes. I feel like it was a huge turning point in how you viewed them, but I think it was also a huge turning point when Astrid shared this story for Manon and her
Mhm.
character development, because before Astrid's story, right? The brutality. What's the 3 words that they always said, like,
It's like brutality, discipline. I don't know what
right.
the third one was. Those are the 2 that I remember.
Yeah, something like that. Like,
Uh-huh.
and this is, I think, the first time that
Obedience.
obedience. Yes, that's it. This is a time where because I think she's had questions about some of the way her grandmother has handled things up to that point, but I don't think she thought anyone else was thinking of it the same way she did. So I think it's the first time that she felt a sisterhood or a connection that wasn't just brutality, obedience, and discipline. That was like, okay, there's some other things going on here. And
Sure.
I think, too, because she had said there wasn't a friendship with Astrid. Like, she was her second, but she wasn't her friend. And I think this is when they actually develop a friendship, right?
For sure. For sure. And that's so relatable, I think, for us, because I can think of so many situations where either I felt this way or I observed people acting this way, where you are uncomfortable with something or something just
Right.
doesn't feel quite right, but you don't immediately do anything about it because it seems like everybody else is fine with it. So
Right.
you rationalize and you're like, surely this is okay, or else someone would be saying something.
Right.
And I just think that happens a lot.
It
So I can
does.
relate to Manon having that experience with
Yeah,
growing up as a Blackbeak and not
for
really
sure.
acknowledging her true doubts about it until this story with Astrid
Right.
comes
And
out.
I think the cool thing about it, too, when we're talking about sisterhood with the 13, I think they've always been a sisterhood because they were a unit and they had to work together. But I think this is one of those points where their sisterhood is deepened, because it wasn't just Astrid, it was Sorrel and Vesta, too. And they never
Yeah.
told Manon. And so I think it just deepened that connection and that sisterhood on a whole new level for them, that it wasn't just a unit, that they were a family, too, a true sisterhood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and you can see from Manon and her grandmother's relationship that
Yeah.
actual family ties don't mean very much in
Mm.
their witch culture, but the ties
No.
they've created as members of the 13, are very different. And it was really interesting to me. I didn't remember this from my first read, but Astrid said, as she's telling the story, that she thought, since Manon was kept in the dark about her pregnancy and her
Right.
witchling, that there must be a reason her grandmother didn't tell her. That for some reason her grandmother was afraid of her, didn't want to
Right.
share this with her.
Yes.
And it was that fact that made her want to be completely loyal to Manon.
Right.
Which is crazy to me because Manon doesn't even realize this. At that point, she didn't even
Right.
realize why Astrid and these other, and maybe Sorrel and Vesta, are so loyal to her. But I think it's just because they have this blind hope that Manon will be different
Right.
than her grandmother. So
Well, they see
that was
something in
kinda
her that
wild.
she doesn't see in herself. We had a affirmation about that a while ago, a few episodes back, like when people can see something in you that you don't always see in yourself. Yeah.
We did.
Yeah.
I remember that. Well, and kind of an extension of this conversation, later on, Manon asks Astrid what it was like to love. Because as you said, their values are brutality, obedience, discipline. Love is not really a thing for them. And so this is a genuine question. What did it feel like to love someone?
Right.
And this quote that Astrid has next, I'm going to read word for word because it is one of my absolute favorite quotes in the whole Throne of Glass series. I think it's so beautiful. This is what Asterin says. It was like dying a little every day. It was like being alive, too. It was joy so complete, it was pain. It destroyed me and unmade me and forged me. I hated it because I knew I couldn't escape it and knew it would forever change me. And that witchling, I loved her too. I loved her in a way I cannot describe, other than to tell you that it was the most powerful thing I've ever felt, greater than rage, than lust, than magic. Amazing. Amazing.
I agree. One of the best quotes in the book, for sure.
Well, and it's such an amazing description of romantic love, parental love.
Yes.
And I think even the love that's shared between the members of the 13, because it does end up being more powerful than all those other things. And we'll get to all of that later. But just such a great description. Another moment we see this is when Manon's grandmother orders that Asterin will be executed for Manon killing the Yellow Leg Sentinel. So we're kind of jumping ahead here to Empire
chronological
Storms.
at all.
Yeah, no, my mind is kind of just really focused on like this sisterhood element right now, and times where that came up with the 13. And so that the next moment that sticks out for me is in Empire of Storms.
Yes.
When there's the attack on Rifthold. And so if you remember, Manon and the 13 are going there to do this attack, but then they find out that Iskra, Yellowlegs, and the Yellowlegs come in, already has been there, already started the attack, and Manon goes to protect Dorian.
Right.
And in order to save him, she ends up killing some of the Yellowlegs, and afterwards they have a little witch trial, I guess, and the punishment for that is they're going to kill Asterin. So not kill Manon,
like blood
but
for
kill Asterin.
blood or something, right?
Yes, exactly. And so this moment is really intense because when the execution day arrives, they're going to first allow the Yellowlegs witches to do this, but then Manon stops them by invoking something called their right of execution.
Yes.
So I guess it's where the leader of a coven has the right to execute someone within their own coven or something.
Right. Like they get first dibs or something.
I guess so. I think Manon actually says something like, what does she say? Something about how she's mine and her death will be mine too.
Right. Yes.
But anyway, so this is going down and Asterin thinks she's about to die. So she tells Manon, bring my body back to the cabin, which... just drive that knife in, Asterin. Wow. In fact, Manon says right after that she felt something breaking in her chest. And I was like, me too, girl. Me too. And in this moment, Manon looks around and she sees the 13 do the following. It says that one by one, they lifted 2 fingers to their brows, the gesture not to honor a high witch, but a witch queen. Forgiveness shown in the faces of her 13, forgiveness and understanding and loyalty that was not blind obedience, but forged in pain and battle, in shared victory and defeat, forged in hope for a better life, a better world. When it comes to scenes that show their loyalty and their sisterhood, this is like one of the early ones that's so key. I feel like they have that gesture with their fingers on their forehead.
Yeah.
And I just got chills when I reread it.
Can I tell you, when I did this reread, I feel like you're always, I don't know if a fog is the right thing, but you're still figuring everything out when you do your first read, right? So when you get to go back and you get to do a reread like this, it's so fun, but you already know to a certain extent, like how things are going to go. And so you pick up on things that you didn't before. But in this part, during my reread, I'm like, wait, how did we get out of this situation? I did not remember. It was one of those moments where I'm like, wait.
And I know in series like this where there are multiple points of view introduced, I'm usually still hyper-focused on like ever the female main characters and the male main character. So, obviously I'm going to read the other chapters, but my heart is with Aelin and Rowan.
Right.
And so it was really cool to go back and reread this. And not that I like totally forgot about Rowan and Aelin, but to be focused on Manon and the 13, because there were things that either I forgot or just didn't even pick up on in my first read.
100%.
So I definitely agree with you. I want to make a quick comment about this moment. and I kind of mentioned already, but I feel like this is an insane amount of faith for them to have in Manon. For not
sure.
really, like, knowing if she is going to be a different leader than her grandmother.
Right.
They're doing that gesture, which, as she said, is not to honor a high witch, but a witch queen.
Yes.
So that's like crazy amount of foreshadowing too.
No, it definitely is.
But-
And I wonder if like part of that and part of that loyalty they're showing her is because, as we kind of learn with the witches, it's like so many of their punishments or death are tortures, right? And so the fact that Manon was willing to kill Astrid herself, but to be merciful about it, it's terrible because it's like
yeah.
you're killing one of our own, but she's doing it to be merciful to Astrid. There's a loyalty
Right.
there, right? That she's willing to like do that.
Yeah, and
I don't
almost
know.
like
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, well, and it's kind of Manon's fault that this is happening because she saved
Yeah.
Dorian and killed the Yellowlegs. So it's
Right.
also her taking ownership of the situation, acknowledging her role in the situation, and also
Yes.
as their leader, not shying away from taking responsibility for
Yes.
Astrid.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is really admirable.
For sure.
And I don't know. I definitely have some amazing friends. I think I need to aspire to be more like the 13 myself as a friend.
Yes.
To show more faith in people, to show more loyalty to my friends.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like they are very inspiring when it comes to friendship. So
No,
very
they really
cool.
are.
At this point, though, Astrid is crying. Understandably, I'd be crying if I was about to die. And she tells Manon what she thinks will be her final words. She says, "Bring our people home, Manon." And Manon then shocks everyone by slicing her grandmother instead of Astrid, and chaos kind of ensues after that. More on that later, but in a nutshell, Manon finds out in this moment that she is the heir to be the next Kraken queen because her father was actually a Kraken prince. So again, we're going to talk more about that later, but that's when this happens, is after this chaos ensues.
Manon's grandmother is such a witch.
Such a witch.
She's such a witch.
And we don't mean that in a complimentary way.
Right? She's telling her all these things, trying to break her, essentially.
Yeah.
But like you said, with the foreshadowing with the witch queen, and it's just like Sarah J. Maas's writing and the way that she was able to do these 8 books and have all the little things is...
I can't.
It's
wild
insane.
To me. I can't.
It really is. Everything comes back.
So well planned out. I
don't know how.
Sarah. I'll never get over it.
No, so good. So many times I was like, ooh. Yeah.
Yep. I know.
Yes.
Well, are there any other times where you feel like the sisterhood in the 13 was really on display?
Yes. Okay, so reading through the 13 and doing the chapters, it was just like goosebumps the whole time. But one other time that we see like this astounding loyalty put on display was when the 13 showed up during the battle with Maeve's armada in the Empire of Storms, because if you remember, they've been separated.
So Manon is with Aelin.
Yes.
Remember, they go into the witch mirror.
Yes.
But Rowan and Dorian Adian are like fighting against Maeve's armada and kind of getting their butts whooped until
they see the birds, and they're like, are those Ilkin? When are they coming? And it's Abraxas bringing the 12 back. So good. And they save their butts. And then afterwards, Manon asks them if they'll still follow her even though she's a Kraken queen. And this happens because remember, she doesn't find out she's a Kraken queen until the grandma thing, but she doesn't get to talk to her 12 because they all get like,
nope. She's like, you guys gotta get out of here.
Like, you guys go. They haven't had a chance to reconnect, so she hasn't even got to talk to him about how they feel about it yet. So this happens, and she goes, as one, the 13 lifted their fingers to their brows. As one, they lowered them. I mean, like, just
so good.
The loyalty there, so good. And Abraxas is amazing for finding them and bringing them.
He is the best.
Speaking of the Kraken witches, though, she has to convince them to unite with the Iron Witches for their cause in the next big flex of sisterhood, which is in the Kingdom of Ash, the last book, the big book. So after the Armada, they leave to go hunt down the Kraken witches to unite them. to go fight.
Because they're trying to gather the army for Terrasen so that they can take on Morath, take on
and they
Erewhon
obviously
and
can't
everybody.
fight Erewhon and the Iron Teeth clan that he already has going, so they need the Krakens to fight, right? So she goes, she finds them, but convince them to join her. She kind of led some yellow legs to them to like fight with them, right? But this held them up when they were supposed to be meeting a warband with Eelway. By the time they got to that warband, they were all dead and they were killed by Iron Teeth witches. And I know she probably had a lot of guilt with that because she had orchestrated that whole thing, and that's why they were dead. And the Krakens are understandably pissed and keep pointing out that Manon had trained the witches who did this, the witches who found this warband and killed them. And here's what Manon and the 13 do. Don't burn them, Manon said. Silence fell in the clearing, but Manon knelt on the festering earth, unsheathed her iron nails, and began digging. Yanking off her gloves, Astrid lowered herself to the ground nearby, then Sorrel and Vesta, then the rest of the 13. So the 13 spent hours and hours hand digging these graves for this warband that they were supposed to have met with the Krakens. And they don't let the Krakens help, and they don't let their Wyverns help. And so obviously that was a huge sign to the Krakens, and another huge sign of loyalty, because I'd be like, girl, you got us in this mess. I'm not digging that hole. Like, good luck.
Yes.
Yeah.
Manon, you got to tell us what's going on for us to be part of this. But also, I was just thinking about it as you were reading, and I feel like this is the first time, you know, we hear that detail about their iron nails a lot throughout the series, and usually it's in context of like they're killing something, they're being violent with the nails. I think this might be the first or maybe only time in the series where they are doing something helpful,
where it wasn't like
a service.
Yeah.
They're not using it as a weapon, but they're doing it as a tool to help others. So that's kind of cool to think about, and kind of an interesting part of their change and evolution as the 13 even. So
that's a good point. I didn't think about that, but you're right.
Those iron nails can be used for good, not just killing people.
Right. That service aspect of it too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So Bronwyn, who's one of the Kraken witches, who I believe was actually her cousin, right? Bronwyn.
Yes. Yep. She's her cousin.
And she's been very vocal about not trusting Manon and the 13. She's not interested. That's what we know. Not interested. And she actually tells Manon that they acted honorably and that this was a huge turning point in the Kraken's trust with the 13. And that wouldn't have happened, obviously, without the loyalty and the unity of the other 12 with Manon to do that act, for sure.
And not too long after that, Manon actually has to decide if they're going to go and aid Terrasen, and has to ask the leaders of the Kraken witches if they will come and aid Terrasen. And so, of course, Manon and the 13 are in. They're going to go. And then all of the 7, I think they call them the Great Hearths of the Krakens, pledge to also go. And then Manon lights what they call the Flame of War, and they kind of like pass it around from hearth to hearth. Yeah. And then it's given to a scout witch, and her job is to travel to find the other Kraken clans to pass the Flame of War on to them. And I remember reading this the first time I read Throne of Glass, but I do not remember having so many emotions as I did when I read it this time. So I am going to read you this part.
Yes.
And I dare you not to be emotional about it, okay? Because just listen to this.
Yes.
Remember, there's a witch with a red cape and the Flame of War in her hand, flying to find the other Kraken witches. Here we go. So, hearth to hearth it went. Your queen summons you to war. Will you fly? Trunks hidden in attics were thrown open. Folded swaths of red cloth pulled from within. Brooms left in closets beside doorways tucked under beds were brought out. Mile after mile across the darkening world, the call went out, ceaseless and unending as the eternal flame that passed from hearth to hearth. Fly, 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 they shouted, to the queen, to war. I mean, like, where do I sign up? I am ready to be a Kraken witch, and I can totally see why Evangeline, when they do show up in Orinth, in Kingdom of Ash, why she's like, I want to be them. Like, I volunteer as tribute. I will be a
Didn't she
Kraken witch.
like ditch her duties with what was Pharaoh or
Darrow. She's
So
like,
she's like,
Darrow,
I'm
I'm
going with
done
the
with
witches.
this. Yeah, bye.
Yeah.
Like, thanks for entertaining me till they got here,
Yes.
but bye.
I love the writing of this because, like, I can literally picture in my head like a movie scene of like all these witches like grabbing their things and like
Yes,
taking
I
off.
know.
And like I think at one point too, it mentioned like some husbands were like, wait, what? Like they didn't
Yes, no,
realize.
it does.
Yes.
It says that the husbands and all these people are like, wait, these witches were living here the whole time?
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't know how to feel about that secret part of it, that they like kept that part of themselves a secret. But what I do love about it is that as soon as this call came, they're getting the brooms out of the attics and they're getting their red capes
Yes.
out that they've held on to. No matter how their lives unfolded, they still have these things.
Yes.
And they were like that. They were gone. They were ready to go fight. And I love that. And speaking of sisterhood, like these are not members of the 13, mind you. These are Kraken witches.
Right.
But I feel like they have a very similar vibe when it comes to loyalty and sisterhood.
I think they definitely do. And I think part of that has been a survival instinct for them, right? They've had to.
True. Good point.
I like that. Pausing for a second, that hearth to hearth. So is that like, you know, they have like the 7 great hearths. Is that like with the Iron Teeth? Because they have the 3 clans, like the Yellow Legs, Blackbeaks, and then would it be like a similar situation? Is that what they mean with 7
That's a good
hearths?
question. I think when I first read it, I was thinking literally of like a hearth, like where the fire sits. But that is a good point. They do call it the 7 great hearths. So you're probably right. It probably is kind of speaking to like the witch families almost, the groups of witches. And yeah, I don't know for sure, but that's a great question. I like that.
Just a thought,
It's a good thought. Very cool. And I loved that moment so much that I added the question, will you fly, as an affirmation? Because, of course, I'm looking for how this applies to my life because that's what I do when I read. And I think that you will metaphorically get this question, will you fly, throughout your life in various situations. But as I was reading that quote, you know, it says, you know, she's flying mile after mile across a darkening world. And I, you know, not to be like a downer or anything, but there have definitely been times in the last couple of years where I do feel like the world is darkening. And in some ways you are being summoned by whatever force you believe in to fly, so to speak, to stand up, to fight, to speak what you believe and protect who you need to protect. And so I just really felt that as I was reading this scene. Yeah. Again, like you pictured it like a movie, but also thought about it in real world terms. Right. Will you fly? Like, will you? Will you fly when you are called to help? So and like they've been going hunted on the affirmation list.
I love it because it's like true. They've had to hide themselves. They've been getting hunted down and killed, and they get a call, and it's like, will you go? Will you fly? Will you put yourself out there? I like it. I think that was a great choice. I really enjoyed it. The 13 obviously get all the Krakens from all over, and they fly to Corinth because Morath is attacking them, right? And they've been called to this fight, and thank goodness they did, because they halt Morath in their tracks. And as they prepare to go to battle, there's a moment that's really cool between Glennis, Bronwyn, Manon, and Astrid, where they have a moment of acknowledging their loved ones that have passed. And they talk about it like I think it was Manon who said she felt 2 people behind her, like her mom and dad at that point, and that they have all these people with them. And there was a moment where Astrid like touches her stomach, remembering like the witchling and her hunter. And I love this because I believe this. I believe that our loved ones who have passed stay with us and they help us. And I think it's a full circle moment with Astrid's story too. I think it was another sisterhood building moment where they're all able to have that like acknowledgement together, right?
Absolutely. And extra beautiful because, you know, you're seeing Manon and Astrid, who are technically Iron Teeth witches, and they're having this moment with Glennis and Bronwyn, who are Kraken witches, and they're all remembering their loved ones. It is just a really beautiful. I love that part.
And it's so not in Manon's character to be sentimental in that way. So it's kind of fun to read that from her. But
definitely.
During this battle, frickin' Iskra is back with her weird
frickin' Iskra.
I can't stand her. or her name. It's a terrible name, so it would fit her,
It does
right?
make for a good, like, swear almost like frickin' Iskra.
Frickin'
Like
Iskra.
how Rain's always like, Ix's tits. It's kind of like frickin'
Yeah.
Iskra.
It's a good villain name for sure. So her
Yes.
Wyvern attacks Abraxas again and almost ends him this time. Like she was saying, like, not that he was going to be able to like bite through Abraxas's neck, but that he was just cutting off his air for so long that Abraxas wasn't going to be able to hold on much longer. But Petra, who I loved on this reread, by the way, she stood out
you
to
like
me.
you don't really notice her as much. I feel like I didn't notice her that much the first time, but I agree with you. During this reread, I was like, yes, Petra, blue blood,
Like,
you go, girl.
Air of Fire, I was
best.
like, I want more from Petra. She's great.
Mm-hmm.
So it was funny because I think when I was reading it, it was like she was hoping someone was going to come save them and like just yelling. And she goes, someone came to save me, but it was none of the 13. And Petra, blue blood, shows up just in time and slams into Iskra and her bull. Was it Titus or Titus?
I don't know if she wanted Titus, but I think that Abraxas
killed
Titus.
Titus. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I don't remember what Iskra's. Yeah, I don't know who her wyvern is. Doesn't matter. He's stupid
Doesn't matter.
So it's fine.
He was big. That's all I know. Petra shows up, slams into Iskra, and her legion of witches is kind of turning the tide for them as well. But Petra's explanation to Manon during this was for a better world and for Keely.
My gosh. Like for Keely.
For Keely. And that
I can't.
But another group is now added to the sisterhood with Petra and her coven. And the end of Iskra freaking Yellow Legs finally could not happen soon enough.
Seriously, though, she has been a thorn in our side the entire series.
She really is.
And Manon's side.
Freaking witch.
Just a freaking witch.
Freaking witch.
In all the worst ways. Not the good kind. Oh my gosh. And yeah, that was just another goosebump moment. I love how the sisterhood is growing. Like, I love how it starts with the 13 and then it kind of expands to the Krakens. And now we've got Petra and the Blue Bloods. And, by the end, it's all the witches. But it's just cool how you kind of see it gradually grow and grow and grow.
Right.
So amazing.
I feel like Petra was always there. But I feel like she was kind of like Manon, where she felt like she couldn't. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and they talk about how the blue bloods of the Iron Teeth clans, the Yellow Legs, the Blackbeaks, the blue bloods, how the blue bloods are a little different because they're a little more mystical and a little less focused on being killing machines, and they kind of make fun of them for that.
Right.
But I do think, I don't know if that's the reason that Petra's a little more open-minded, a little more, I don't know, just seems to be a little more aligned with what they should be doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you read her dialogue carefully in Air Fire, you can kind of tell from the beginning that she's not gonna be like Manon's grandmother or
discipline,
Iskra,
obedience, brutality.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's not her jam.
No, agreed.
She loved Keely, and that whole scene was super heartbreaking when Keely died. And anyway, we'll talk about that more.
Yes.
But yeah, for Keely.
Okay.
But like you were saying, Abraxas is in bad shape, and so he barely makes it to the castle walls. And this part too, oh my gosh. So he gets there, kind of lands, and then cannot move. He's bleeding everywhere. Manon goes to put her hands there to stop his bleeding, and her hands are joined by 12 other pairs of hands because everyone in the 13 is trying to keep Abraxas from bleeding out. And gosh, these freaking witches and their wyverns made me feel so many things.
I know. Who knew that we would have a dragon fetish in our midlife?
I just didn't know. Anyway, not long after this, they realize that Morath's witch towers are moving toward Orin. And basically, Manon helped create these witch towers that are lined with witch mirrors. And the idea is that a witch inside the witch tower will jump into this center tunnel or chute, I guess.
Yeah, like the
lined
pit,
with the mirrors.
I think they called it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And while they are in said pit, they will perform the yielding, which is the only type of actual magic that witches have.
Right.
And when they use it, it kills them. So these are like suicide bombers, essentially. They're going to jump in the witch tower, and they're going to do the yielding, and that's going to blow everyone to smithereens. And Abraxos can't fly.
Right.
So that means Manon also can't fly.
Right.
And Manon knows, though, that they only have minutes until this tower is going to destroy everything.
Right.
And the 13 recognize this, too. So in this moment, they start walking by Manon, walking towards their wyverns. And Astrid walks by her and says, "Live, Manon, live." Before punching her so hard in the stomach that Manon collapses. And during that time that she's down, the 13 take to the skies before she can stop them.
Right.
So
it will get me every time. Every freaking time.
I know. And before Astrid actually flies off, she again tells Manon, "Bring our people home, Manon." So this is twice now. So the first time she thought she was going to die, and she said, "Bring our people home." And then she didn't die. Let's not say anything, but let's keep going here. 13, they fly into the army of Iron Teeth witches that's guarding this tower.
Right.
And they all get taken down, but they do it in such a way that it clears a path for Astrid to get to the tower. Sorrel especially clears the path for Astrid.
Yeah.
And Astrid jumps in the tower. She goes after Manon's grandmother, gets the witch who was about to jump into the pit where the mirrors are. And then Astrid and every member of the 13, wherever they got taken down, they destroy the witch tower and themselves by performing or making the yielding. And I'm going to attempt to read this passage. Like I said, these witches and wyverns make me very emotional. So here we go.
Yeah.
Here's how the yielding is described in Kingdom of Ash. "And it was not darkness, but light. Light bright and pure as the sun on snow that erupted from Astrid. Light as Astrid made the yielding, as the 13, their broken bodies scattered around the tower in a near circle, made the yielding as well. Light, they all burned with it, radiated it. Light that flowed from their souls, their fierce hearts, as they gave themselves over to that power, became incandescent with it, as the 13 yielded completely and blew themselves and the witch tower to smithereens." So I love that they win this with light, because what a big contrast to how they were introduced originally in the series as these brutal, dark witches. And then in the end, they save everyone by erupting with light.
Right.
Oh gosh, this scene is, I feel like, really iconic in Romantasy, but it's for a good reason.
Yeah.
Because by this point, you love the 13, you admire the 13, you want to be part of the 13.
Yes.
And I if it wasn't for Book Talk, I definitely would not have seen this coming. Like, I would have been like, the 13 forever, like till the end of time, until the darkness claims us, right?
Right.
And interesting, though, that it's not darkness that claims them here. It's actually
lightness.
So
and I love that she did that, the lightness thing, because it's like the age-old story, right? That like light always beats out darkness. And so it's like, it's what you need for every good story.
Yes, this big battle of good versus evil.
Mm-hmm.
And what was your reaction when you read The Yielding the first time? And that's kind of silly for me to ask you, because we were together when we read it the first time.
I remember that we were on our girls' trip and we were both laying in our beds, and I think you had the that playlist that you had while we were reading, which was perfect timing, but I ugly crying. And I think we ugly cried together the rest of the night about it. I don't think either of us recovered.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And it was so funny because during this reread, I was I actually, Kingdom of Ash, I listened to most of it instead of reading it. And I was hanging up my laundry, ugly crying. And then not long after, you called to ask me some questions and you're like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm crying."
I was really scared for a second that like a real life problem had happened. Not to downplay this, obviously.
No, this is a real life problem, Whitney.
Yeah, it is. You're right. What am I saying?
I ugly cried. I ugly cried the second time, and I think I will ugly cry anytime I think about
Well, that's what's crazy is I'll just like see a reel on Instagram or TikTok about this. Like it'll just be like the audio from Kingdom of Ash or a little artistic representation of the 13, and I get emotional and start crying. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Right.
This is, but I mean, how can you not? It's so good and sad at the same time. Just,
I know. And
oh,
it's terrible because, like, you read these books and you want, like, everyone to live, and it's always going to be that good ending. And, like, it is a good ending, and it is so good, but it
this was
scarred us.
probably the hardest loss for me of this series is
I
the
think
13.
so far of any of the Romantasy series we've ever read, there's a couple in ACOTAR, but, like, this is hands down the worst. But, yeah.
I mean, when I thought Reese was dead, I was pretty upset, but then he wasn't, so it was fine. He wasn't.
Thinking, like, what is it? The Surreal, when the Surreal... Who was it?
Yeah, that's really bad too. That's true. That's a hard one.
Who was it? I was reading some theories today, and they were... I think I screenshotted it because I wanted to talk to you about it.
Is it the one about Caltaine in the Surreal?
Yes.
Okay.
And, like, I want to believe that one, like, in a weird way.
Hold that thought. Okay. Hold that thought for theories coming up.
We'll talk about that one.
I've seen that one too.
It's an interesting one, which I think we could do, like, an episode on just, like, the women of Throne of Glass and each of the, like, you know what I mean? Because there's so many good female characters in this, but...
It was hard rereading this because there are so many characters that come into play, right? So, for example, I'm like, okay, well, if we're talking about Manon, I feel like I have to talk about Dorian. But then, and then there's a lead, and then of course Aelin. I'm like, well, there's Caltaine. Is she elected enough to like bring into this anyway? But everybody is so connected. At some point, it's hard. It's almost impossible to like, focus on the characters the way we are, but
because they're so intertwined.
That's fine.
They're so intertwined. Well, of course, I feel like empty inside after this moment, and Manon is literally just like a shell of a person after this. She just lost her whole life, her whole family, like anything that she's ever, her whole life. It's just
everything.
Everything's gone.
I mean, the 13 has been everything to her for her whole life.
Yep.
So,
but because of their yielding and because of that sacrifice they had made, Morath ends up pulling back, and she goes down to the scorched earth where they had performed this yielding because, of course, it basically incinerates everything. There's nothing left. And pretty much everybody followed her down, and they all bring flowers to honor the 13 and just lay them on the ground. And I think in the book it mentions like that she stayed longer, not just longer, but like hours, like did not move. And as she's mourning, a flower finally begins to bloom in the wastes. This whole time they're trying to get their land back, the wastes, right? And a flower has bloomed, and that's a signal that the curse is broken. The Kraken witch Rhiannon 500 years ago had cursed the witch kingdom, and this was a sign that it had been broken. Because let me just read to you what Queen Rhiannon had cursed them when they were killing her. She said this: blood to blood and soul to soul, together this was done, and only together it can be undone. Be the bridge, be the light. When iron melts, when flowers spring from fields of blood, let the land be witness and return home. So let's break it down.
So that's the curse.
That's the curse.
Break it down.
Break it down. So Queen Rhiannon cursed this on the Iron Teeth matrons, where they weren't going to be like able to live in the wastes or make it a home, right? And so not long after the yielding, a band of Crockerans brings this flower from the wastes that has bloomed, and Manon, Petrin, Bronwyn, and Glennis are gathered together, and they repeat the lines of the curse and realize that it has indeed been broken by their people. So breakdown: only together can it be undone. Be the bridge, be the light. So Manon was the bridge, and the 13 were the light with that yielding. The light.
Very cool.
Very cool. When iron melts, and the 13 had melted the tower containing the Iron Teeth witches, right? That. And then when flowers spring from fields of blood, so all those people who followed Manon down there, bringing flowers to lay at the field, and then let the land be witness and return home. So that one I kind of is special because everyone had witnessed the 13 sacrifice. Like, everyone watched it. Manon had to sit there and watch it. And I can't imagine being up on the castle watching that happen. It's just really cool. But
Poor Manon.
poor
But I
Manon.
love that detail, like what you just pointed out about, line for line, how Manon and the 13 broke this curse.
Yeah.
And I did not remember that. Like, I vaguely remembered the curse and, the 13 having a role in the witches getting back home and stuff. But I did not remember each of those little details
Right.
aligning that way. And that was really cool to read about. I love
Right.
that. I love full circle moments.
Yes.
And that was a good one.
That one
Very
is a
cool.
good one. And of course, be the bridge, be the light is another
Yes.
affirmation we've chosen for today. I feel like be the bridge, be the light. You can break it down in so many different ways. And I think it's also like applicable to some of the other ones. I feel like these affirmations all kind of go hand in hand too, right? About when,
Totally.
so I guess like my question would be like, how can we do that? How can we be the bridge? How can we be the light? How can we
Yeah.
fly?
No, that's yes. Yes. Well, whereas, when we talked about flying, we were kind of, I feel like, approaching it more as, we've got to stand up and fight. Be the bridge, be the light, I think is a little more about unifying
Yeah.
and finding things that bring us together versus
Yeah.
fighting against another group. And so there are plentiful examples
For sure.
of groups that need to be more unified.
Right.
And so, like, thinking about Manon and the 13, I guess they, one way to put it is they were willing to look beyond what they had been taught their entire lives and were willing to kind of really look inside themselves to figure out what was right and what was moral. And once they did that, they were able to, like we said, expand their sisterhood to include these other groups.
Right.
And that's how they were a bridge and a light. So similarly with us, sometimes I think we need to really like introspect and think what's right and how can I use that to connect with people or groups around me. Because there's so much divisiveness
For
and
sure.
conflict.
Well, I
around
like
us,
what you said.
unfortunately.
For sure. I like what you said with that introspection because I think it's something we've seen Manon and the 13 do through some of these other examples when they were building that sisterhood is part of that is that introspection is some of the responsibility and that she took for her actions, like what we saw with Astrid. And I think that, being accountable and whatnot is being a bridge to all kinds of different things, right?
Right. And it kind of shows how being a bridge and a light starts with like working on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to really look at yourself, make yourself accountable. And it's hard to do that. And it's easy to just point out what's wrong with everybody around you. But you have to start with you. And then you can take that and use it to help others.
Right.
So Manon the 13 are a great like model journey of how to do this. So I
like
love
it.
that affirmation. Be the bridge and be the light. And so Manon goes and takes this flower from the waste that's bloomed and she lays it on the ground where the 13 yielded.
Yeah.
And she says, in thanks and in love, so they would know, so Astrid would know, in the realm where she and her hunter and child walked hand in hand, that they had made it, that they were going home. Ugh, okay, not crying. I'm not crying. You're crying, guys. Oh my gosh, why? Why am I crying? Okay, it's okay. We
Because
again, like we were talking about,
it just hits everything. It really. Sarah J. Maas, what are you doing to us?
What are you doing to us? Just like we're all on the same page about like mispronouncing things, we're all going to be on the same page that talking about the yielding is going to make us all cry every time. So
every time.
It's fine. Yeah. But I love that, again, that full circle imagery of Astrid and the hunter and her witchling. I love all of this. And the sisterhood element for me is one of the best things about the 13. And it's taught me so much about being part of a sisterhood, about being a good friend,
Yeah.
about being
Yes.
a light and a bridge. Do you have anything you want to add about that aspect of the 13, the sisterhood part?
No, not necessarily anything like I'll add. I think I have 3 daughters, and so I feel like growing up being a girl is just hard and girls are mean. I'm gonna make my girls read the 13 chapters and be like, this is what you need. These are the kind of girlfriends you need. This is the kind of friends
Yes.
you need. Find your
Yes.
13.
Find the 13
Find your
and be like the
13. Yeah.
13 in your
Yeah.
friendships.
Yeah.
I love that idea. So good. Something else that makes Manon and the 13 so memorable for me is how much Manon evolves and
Yes.
changes during this series. For example, consider this description of her in Air of Fire when she's introduced for the first time. Oh, this is the answer to our question earlier. Okay, here's what it says. Obedience, discipline, and brutality were the most beloved words in the Blackbeak clan.
Yes.
All else was to be extinguished without a second thought. So, and that's how she is when we first meet her. Just disciplined, brutal, obedient to the matron. What did you think about Manon and the 13 when they were first introduced?
Okay, so first let's talk about Manon and how we say Manon, because when I first read it, as I think most people in like the Romantasy world, it was Manon, right?
Yeah,
Manon.
I totally said Manon.
And then the audiobooks come out and you're like, I have been saying that wrong, very wrong for a very long time.
Hard to train that out of your brain.
Right? But when I was first introduced to him, I think we spoke on this a little earlier, I was so enthralled with Aelin and her character, and you had Kel and Dorian, and at that point you're meeting Rowan, and so I was kind of like ready to move on from her, and I was like, oh, she's
Like,
just
why?
another villain in these books, and she's just not very nice, and she's kind of, I didn't like her that much. I didn't hate her, but I was just like not interested in her character at first.
Yeah.
Because
No, it's totally fair.
but there was a hint pretty quickly that she wasn't typical Blackbeak or a typical Iron Teeth witch, because she chose Abraxas as her mount, and I think that's where you first get a like, this is not going to go the way I thought it was going to go.
Yeah, it's like your first hint that there's little more to this Manon character than we thought.
Yes, 100%, because there's a big alpha, Titus, who Iskra did want, and Manon wanted too. Manon. Back to Manon.
Same thing.
Manon
All
wanted.
good.
And for some reason, I kept thinking of Titus earlier. And Abraxas was just the bait beast, which I had a hard time reading it the first time around because it's just gross, right? A bait beast
Yeah.
and that whole situation. And Iskra's back. There's like,
We thought we were done with her.
I know, we thought we were done with her.
Frickin' Iskra.
So you have like these heirs to the clans, and they all want like the biggest, baddest Weirvin or whatever. And she actually pushes Manon, because they're all watching to pick their Weirvins, right? And she pushes Manon onto the floor where they are. And Abraxas refuses to go down without a fight and defeats Titus, because I think in Air of Fire, she talked about when she was pushed down and she's in the pit with both of them. There's Abraxas and there's Titus. Titus looked at her like she was prey. But when she looked at Abraxas, she's like, he didn't look at me like I was prey. And I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Something I didn't pick up on the first time reading, but I picked up on the second time reading.
Definitely.
Actually, let me just read this where it says in Air of Fire, the bait beast had trounced him, not because he was bigger or stronger, but because he wanted it more. Titus had been a brute and a killer, yet this Weirvin before her, he was a warrior. The witch and the Weirvin looked at each other for a moment and lasted for a heartbeat. That lasted for an eternity. You're mine, Manon said to him. I love that. Is it Fourth Wing where they have to match with their dragon?
The dragons have to pick them, right?
Yeah, like
on
it's
threshing
like that
days.
bonding, right?
Yes, they have to bond with them.
Right.
And it's almost like Abraxos and Manon bond.
That's what I
like
felt
in the same way that the Fourth Wing riders bond with their dragons.
The second, because of course I hadn't read that the first time I read it, but the second time I'm like, oh, they bonded, like they had their bonding.
There's also that "you're mine" language, which she kind of uses when she's invoking their right to execution with Astra and talking about how she's mine. So she immediately takes Abraxos as like part of her squad, right? Like part of her
Yes.
little family.
Yes.
It's an instant bond, which is cool.
Yes. And I like it because she talked about how she could almost tell he was talking to her. They were having
Yeah.
conversations. But of course,
Well, and that's like another way that you could tell Petra was there's more to her too, because there was a conversation somewhere where Petra kind of alludes to that she and Keely communicate with each other.
Exactly
and
the one you're talking
that
about.
was
She's
really cool.
She's like, you don't talk
She's
to
like,
yours or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. Thank
Yeah.
you. She's like, you don't talk to yours? And yeah, I loved that. I loved that little detail.
No, for sure. And I think that's a good point that Petra did the same thing that Manon did, and they really bonded with their wyvern.
But you don't get a sense that Iskra or any of the other like Yellowlegs or anything have that type of relationship with their wyverns.
No, it's just like a tool for them. Like there's not like a bond there. But of course, matron Blackbeak, Manon's grandmother, beats Astrid for letting Manon fall, first of all. And then she not only beats Astrid, but then she physically and verbally kind of beats up Manon for choosing a small wyvern. What are your thoughts about that? Like, that's her first reaction.
Well, that's probably when like I started hating Grandma Blackbeak, because I'm like, okay, like chill, lady, first of all. And, you know, as I was reading that scene where Manon chooses Abraxos, I totally got her rationale. You know, Abraxos killed Titus. Clearly he was... Yes. So you'd think that Manon's grandmother would be okay with her choice with Abraxos.
Right.
But no. And so, yeah, that's where I really was like, I do not like this lady. She is a real witch. Don't like her at all. So,
right.
But later in that same book, they have what's called the War Games.
Yes.
And this was kind of like the second hint at Manon's true character. And Iskra Yellowlegs, frickin' Iskra, her wyvern fatally injures Petra Bluebloods. And we mentioned this. This is Keely, right? So poor Petra and Keely, they start falling to the ground because Iskra's wyvern injured.
Which,
Keely.
pause real quick, they were told not to maim or kill during the War Games. But it's
frickin' Iskra didn't care.
Yeah.
And so Manon first hears Petra scream because of Keely. And then she hears Petra's mother, so the matron of the Blue Blood clan. I think her name is Cressida, which, side note, is very interesting because there's also a Cressida in ACOTAR, and I'm like,
yes.
How could that be connected? Anyway, anyway, that's a tangent, not for right now, maybe later. But Manon also hears Petra's mother scream when she realizes that, you know, her daughter is plummeting to the ground, to her death, probably. Right. And so Abraxos flies straight to Petra and Keely. Manon is able to somehow jump from her saddle, able to get Petra out of the saddle and jump back to Abraxos holding her. And then Keely crashes to the canyon floor. That scene is heart-wrenching because it talks about how Keely uses her last strength to flatten out, to allow Manon to get Petra because Petra's unconscious. Anyway, it's a whole thing. It's really heartbreaking. And after all of that, Manon becomes the wing leader. She's chosen to be the wing leader because they win the War Games and she saves Petra. Not to be confused, well, Fourth Wing has come up a lot, not to be confused with wing leaders in Fourth Wing, though it'd be very interesting to see this crossover with the dragons and the wyverns. And
for sure.
Even though there's wyverns in Fourth Wing, which did you know that on the Fourth Wing, on the Fourth Wing audio, they say wyvern.
Wyvern.
This one, it's wyvern.
Every time we've been talking today and I keep saying wyvern, I'm like, wyvern, because I'm like, I'm done with the wyvern.
Just throw all those letters together in any formation. It's fine. It's all good. We all know what's happening. Anyway, this moment, as well as when Abraxos makes the crossing for the first time.
Right.
I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was like, these witches and their wyverns are making all these emotions come up in me. And I'm feeling so many things that I did not think I would feel about witches and wyverns.
Right.
So...
No, it's so true.
My
though. I think I told you the story of my son when we always tell like good night stories and good bed stories. And he's like, Mom, I just wish we lived somewhere where dragons were real. And I was like, I feel you so hard right now.
I
Me
feel so
too.
seen.
Yes, like we could not
I'm with
connect
ya.
more
With ya,
right
man.
now. But yeah, no, they make you feel all the feelings. And then, of course, Grandma Blackbeak comes back in. And after the war games, she is so mad at Manon and her choice. And then, like, the choice to save another heir. I think it was more like she didn't want her saving a witch, but that she saved an heir of like a rival clan and stuff, like ticked her off. And so she gives her a gift of killing a Kraken witch and getting a new red cloak to wear because she's worn the cloak of a Kraken she had killed forever ago. Like, I think it was her first
Yeah,
Kraken
her
kill or
first
something.
kill is like a trophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she had always worn this red cloak. And so her lovely grandmother brings her someone to kill in a new cloak. And we, of course, find out later that this is Manon's half sister that she didn't know about, Rhiannon. And
Mm-hmm.
we have to reread these last words that Rhiannon actually spoke to Manon right before Manon killed her. This is what she says: "They have made you into monsters, made Manon, and we feel sorry for you." I don't know. She said it so snarky. We feel sorry for you, but
Who knows how she said it, but she said it.
she said it, and Manon pretends to not care, but struggles for this for a while. Like, there's several points with that book where it's just made, made, made. Like, it really is on her mind. Like, what did she mean by "I was made"? And with what Rhiannon said, as well as the fact that Manon does kill her, we see another moment where we get to know Manon more to her core, right? Because is Rhiannon's statement still true? Like, can people be made into monsters?
It's an
Yeah.
interesting question to think about. I mean, I think so, because I think all of us are born inherently good. I don't think any of us are
No.
born
Yeah. I agree
as
with that
evil
statement. Yes.
beings. And so I think that sometimes the way that we are, the things that we're around can influence how we turn out. And
For
yes,
sure.
we all make our own choices. I totally agree with that. But there are definitely environments
Yeah.
that make it easier to make good choices
For
than
sure.
other environments.
What is that?
So,
The nature versus nurture
yes, the
argument.
nature versus nurture.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, to a degree, I think that is true. I've met some amazing people that have come out of environments that should have created a monster and they are not a monster.
Like
And that is
Abraxas?
always, yes, that's always like super inspiring to me. But yeah, I definitely think
For sure.
you can be made into a monster. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think that it's like such a weird thing because you hate that Manon had this. Obviously, she didn't know it was her sister, all these things. But like, if she hadn't had that moment happen, would she have thought that hard about that maid statement? Would the rest of her story have gone the way it did if that interaction hadn't gone the way it had, you know?
Oh yeah.
But
Well, I remember I remember reading this. I can't remember if it's later in our outline or not, but I remember at one point she asks Elite about it. She says something like, "Do you think monsters are made?" or something along those lines.
mhm.
And I think Elite just responds with something like, "That's not for me to decide. That's for you to figure out, Manon." And so, you were speaking of how she grapples with this and has to struggle with it, and she definitely does.
No,
She
she does.
thinks about it a lot.
Manon is a great example of someone who does a lot of self-introspection.
True.
She really
Very
does.
true.
She really
That's why
does.
she's able to be the bridge. She
That's right.
introspects.
So, of course, at the end of Queen of Shadows, after the King of, here's another one. How did you say that name for a long time?
I don't even know.
I don't know
did not
either.
say I did not say Adderlin, but I know that's how you're supposed to say it, and
Yeah.
that's how I say it now. I don't know how I was
I know
initially
I was saying
pronouncing
something
it.
else until I heard it, and now that's all I say.
Adderlan?
Yeah, I don't know what I was saying, but it wasn't what it was, Otterland. But the king of Otterland dies, and Dorian is free from the vowed possession at that point. Manon and Abraxas on Dorian's balcony to kind of give like a check-in before she returns to Morath. And the moment she flies away from Dorian, she has this beautiful line. Let me find it here. "Changing winds, a changing world, perhaps a changing 13 too, and herself. She didn't know what to make of it, but Manon hoped they'd all survive it. She hoped." So I love that evolution of Manon from obedience, brutality, discipline to hope. And
So good, because this is the very end of Queen of Shadows, like you said. So
yes,
we started Air of Fire with her being, obedient, brutal, discipline. Now we're, 2 books into her part of the series,
yep,
and she is hoping, which is not something she did before,
nope,
and she is open to change.
yes,
So already she has changed a lot. Just the
a
fact that
lot.
she is having this kind of mindset, right?
Right.
And in the next book, in Empire of Storms, the moment we spoke of earlier, when Astrid was about to be executed, Manon has this realization. Manon understood in that moment that there were forces greater than obedience and discipline and brutality, understood that she had not been born soulless, she had not been born without a heart. Another part where we see her changing, and like we said before, Manon chooses not to kill Astrid. Instead, she orders the 13 to run and she battles
Right.
her grandmother. During that fight, her grandmother reveals that Manon's father was actually a Kraken prince.
Right.
And not only that, but the Kraken Manon had killed was her half-sister. And now Manon is next in line to be the Kraken queen. Surprise!
Right.
And later in Empire of Storms, after the 13 helped defeat Maeve's armada, Manon says the following to them. She says, "It is time that we became better than our foremothers. We are all children of this land. I am going to find the Krakens, and I am going to raise an army with them for Aelin Galathinius and her people and for ours." Man, talk about somebody who has changed and evolved, growing into her potential. And I feel like this line about becoming better than our foremothers is really cool, because if we all aspired to do that, even if your foremothers were amazing, wonderful people,
Right.
if we all aspired to improve in some way, to be a little bit better in this generation than the previous, imagine what the world would be like if that was our goal.
For sure. Well, and
It
I
would be
think
amazing.
Every parent's or grandparent's dream is for their kids to have it better or be better than they were. So what if we all actually were?
Tried to be better?
Yeah, tried to be better and do better.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, and it's so funny because in that quote you just read at the beginning of the book, the Iron Teeth, their whole purpose was to hunt down the last Kraken witch, and now she is here. I'm gonna go find them. I'm finding them.
Yeah.
So it's just
right.
Such a 180 for her character in the best way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
So-
love it.
Now we're going to talk a little bit about Kingdom of Ash, when Manon is getting ready to find the Krakens, and she's grappling with her new identity as the Kraken and Blackbeak. She's half and half, right? Because her mother was a Blackbeak, dad was prince of the Krakens, and she says, "A child not of war, but of peace." But those were foreign words on her tongue: love and peace. So she's still getting used to associating herself with these words. Because could you imagine? She looks 20, but she's 120.
Yes,
right?
I can't remember exactly how old she is, but she's hundreds of years. Yeah,
So-
she's old.
That's a huge identity shift, right? And identity shifts are
Yes.
hard,
Yes.
which is why her visit to Petra, Blue Blood, and her coven's difficult. And this is after she's found the Krakens. They've been called to war. So she's going to go tell them, hey, are you kind of with me? Here's part of what she says. "All my life, I have been fed a lie about who we are, what we are, that we are monsters and proud to be." She ran a finger over the scrap of red fabric binding her braid. "But we are made into them. Made," she repeated, "when we might be so much more." I love that. That made, that never left. But at this point, kind of like what happened when Astrid told her her story, and she's been able to see oh, it's not just me. Astrid reveals her branded abdomen then to all the clans there with Petra, and many others actually acknowledge that they've received similar punishment. So I think it was a good bonding sisterhood moment for all of the covens. And I know I'm quoting a ton, but this part's just so good. So Manon goes on. "I have seen it. I have seen witch and human and fae dwell together in peace. And it is not a weakness to do so, but a strength. I have met kings and queens whose love for their kingdoms, their peoples, is so great that the self is secondary. whose love for their people is so strong that even in the face of unthinkable odds, they do the impossible. It is time that we become better than our foremothers. There is a better world out there, she said again, and I will fight for it. She turned Abraxas away toward the plunge behind them. Will you? I don't know how they didn't like fly after her at that moment. Like, yes.
Seriously, I have chills. I've been like, yes, I am with you.
Yes, yes, that's my queen.
Yes, exactly.
So it was so good. I had to add this portion of the speech to the list of affirmations. We might be so much more. There's a better world out there, and I will fight for it. I feel like our affirmations
both of those lines
just start building on top of each other.
Oh, totally. Yes. They all kind of have that same vibe of, we're going to fight for what's good and we can be so much more. We can be better. Yeah. I also love in that quote you read how she talks about leaders who love their land and their people so much that the self is secondary.
Yes.
It kind of makes me wonder like if that actually exists in the world. But
for real right now.
But it would be great. It would be great to have a leader like that.
Right. And our battle.
Manon for president.
Manon the 13, right?
I mean, unfortunately, that's not possible. But maybe Manon and Aelin can be like the first great female president.
Hey, there we go. Okay.
I nominate them.
T-shirt idea right there.
Yes, that's a good T-shirt idea.
Like, I know like our battles might look different, but sometimes we have to summon ourselves with that same intensity and courage as Manon, even if it's not in a big group, but those pet speeches in the mirror to ourselves, like, we're going to be better. Yep. It's going to be a better world out there, and I'm going to fight for it. And
yeah,
you're going to fly.
Yes, I love that. I love that. That's why I love affirmations, right? Because those are the moments we need them. This is like such a silly story, but I'm gonna tell you anyway because it just made me think of it. So on a recent trip with my husband, we wanted to do a zip line. I am not a thrill seeker at all. I don't ride roller coasters. I don't like things like that. They're not fun to me. I just feel like nervous and scared the whole time. So, but I was like, man, this zip line is really cool. We were in these like beautiful mountains. And so I wanted to make myself do it. And we had to wait in a line for about an hour to do it. So for that entire hour, I'm watching people go off the zip line and like questioning my life choices about whether or not I should do this. And I literally was thinking about a bunch of our affirmations from other books we've. Yeah, so I guess mainly from Crowns of Nyaxia, because that's what we've been deep diving. But I kept thinking about Lilith and how she's like, if I didn't do dangerous things, I would do nothing. And I'm like, okay, if I didn't do dangerous things, I would do nothing.
So happy. I love it.
Literally got me up on the zip line, and the zip line was super fun, and I have zero regrets about doing it. It was so cool.
So you're going to go do it again? Would you do another one?
I would totally do another one. Yes.
Okay. It's so funny you share that story because I was with your kids, but specifically your daughter had mentioned she'd FaceTimed with you that morning. And she's like, I don't think she'll do it.
She knows me really well. She knows me very well.
I don't think she'll do it. So I think it's awesome. And I'm so glad you did because fun for you. But then you showed her you did it. You did it.
Right?
So proud of you.
Not long after Manon, gives this really inspiring speech to the Blue Blood Coven, the 3 Iron Teeth matrons show up at the Kraken camp.
I remember, yes.
That means it's Manon's grandmother, Cressida Blue Blood, and the Yellow Legs matron. I cannot remember her name.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. We don't like them. It's fine. And so they show up. But one thing that we should know about the Yellow Legs matron is she is wearing Rhiannon's crown, which is just like a huge insult to the Krakens because that's special to them.
Yeah.
And remember, Rhiannon was the last Kraken queen 500 years ago who cursed the land, not Rhiannon as in Manon's half-sister that was just killed. So anyway, lots of Rhiannons, just keep them all straight. This scene really showcases, though, again, how Manon has evolved and changed because it says she's kind of coaching herself through this fight. And and I think in her mind, she's also comparing to her last fight with her grandmother, which was before she was supposed to kill Astrid. And her grandmother beat her up pretty good, if you remember. She sliced her so bad in the stomach that Abraxos had to carry her to the ship where Dorian was and kind of dumped her off.
And I think she was basically on the brink of death at that because she couldn't stop the bleeding. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
You're right. She was very, very injured and very close to dying. So compare that to this battle with not only Manon's grandmother, but the other matrons as well. So here's what is going on in Manon's mind during that fight. She says, "Gone was the witch who had slept and wished for death. Gone was the witch who had raged at the truth and that had torn her to shreds. And in her place, fighting as if she were the very wind, unfaltering against the matrons, stood a queen of two peoples." And I love that for Manon. I love that she is having this kind of positive dialogue in her mind about it. And I think that that's really telling and a great lesson for us too, because having positive dialogue in your brain is very helpful and beneficial. And she's successful in this fight too. She kills the Yellow Legs matron. Does that sound right?
Yes, because she took the crown.
Yes, thank you. And her grandmother and Petra Blueblood kind of scurry off.
Yeah.
They are like, we are not messing with you.
Which I'm kind of surprised with is it
Cressida. I don't know.
Cressida.
Another pronunciation.
Because
I need to look up. I don't know.
Right, because being a blue blood, and Petra being her daughter, and the way she screamed for Petra when she thought she was going to die, I was kind of surprised with her that she like came into this scene and was like so like cutthroat. I'm like, I thought you were not that though.
No, yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I feel like Manon mentions at one point that that Cressida kind of like has an expression that suggests maybe she is doubting what's happening here a little bit.
Yes.
I could be wrong. Don't quote me, but I feel like that happened. Anyway, they scurry off. And so then Manon picks up Rhiannon's crown and tries to give it to Glenys. And Glenys won't take it, saying that that crown belongs to Manon. And there's this amazing moment where all of the Krakens that are there and all the 13 kneel before Manon and they say in unison, "Queen of Witches."
Yes.
And it was just like that moment where Manon, you can say like Manon freaking did it. Like here she is uniting the Iron Teeth and the Kraken Witches as the queen of two peoples.
Yes.
So cool. She goes from this brutal Blackbeak killer to unifying the Krakens and the Blackbeaks as the High Queen. What are your biggest takeaways from this evolution of Manon?
Well, biggest takeaways, that can go a bunch of different ways. I think the biggest takeaway from me with Manon's character is that we all have the ability to change and evolve in a good way, right? She started,
absolutely.
And I think like we can all have our moments where we're pretty, I don't know if brutal is the right word, but you know, just like, and that she took the time to be self-introspective and that she took the time to see what was going on around her and make the changes that were necessary for her to be the Queen of Witches, right? And to lead two groups that were like not rivals, but like complete.
Kinda. I mean, they were like enemies.
Yeah, enemies. Like they were. So I think like that would be my biggest takeaway with her is just that we all have the ability and we should all constantly be evolving. That would be my thought.
I love that. And I also appreciate that she struggles with this change, that it's not easy for her. It's not instantaneous. And because I think so often change is a struggle for us.
Right.
And so it helps me to see that in another character, another person on their journey of changing, right?
Right.
I appreciated that about Manon, that it was not easy for her, that she had to really grapple with a lot of this stuff. And that is the end of this episode, part 1 of our exploration of the 13 from the Throne of Glass series. We yapped about the Throne of Glass series and the 13 for so long that we decided we needed to actually split it into 2 episodes so that it wasn't the longest episode ever created in all Romantasy podcast history. So if you are having as much fun as we are hearing and chatting all about Manon and the 13, then go listen to part 2 because it is just as fun. Thank you so much for listening to Romantasy Remedy. We would love to hear any of your comments wherever you're listening to your podcast. Also, please connect with us on Instagram and TikTok or shoot us an email at romantasyremedy@gmail.com. Thanks so much. Bye.